Hey there. Can you hear me? No, you can't hear me. Let's see. Hmm. Can you hear me now? No. Is your volume turned up? Let's see.
One of the other horses every time she saw him, and that was really hard on him, and he lost weight and he was not doing well, and then now he's kind of gotten his mojo back, and and she's stopped going at him all the time. So
Interesting. It's so, her dynamics are just so fascinating. I think that we will do something on that soon, actually, in the group. So it looks like that. I like that she sounds like she's more mannerly. She's not barging into you. Can you explain how you accomplish that for me?
Well, I had the wall target, and so I've been training all of them to go to that target on the wall before they get their feed, because she's always the third one to get fed out of the four. And so the first two have to go in the correct order. And then she was always like kind of on the edge of barging into them. And I'm like, dear God, don't go in there because they're going to kill you if you do. And so then she's learned, like, okay, I'm just going to wait over here, and then I'm going to go to my wall target. So
it sounds like she didn't have a great upbringing as far as social skills and socialization in her. Just
well, she was the boss before, so she did whatever she wanted.
She was what?
She was the boss of all of the young horses there.
Okay.
So she basically did whatever she wanted with them. And yeah, so.
What was her mother like? Do you
know? I mean, the breeder said that she had gotten this mare as a brood mare, and she was like, I don't know, somewhat less than 10, but not a young horse, So she didn't know like what she was like as a youngster. But evidently this lineage, they're all pretty rambunctious.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So I'm thrilled that the target on the wall is working. That's really good. And really, if I'd rather if I was going to have a challenge, I'd rather have one that was overly enthusiastic than one that was not. You can do so. You can at least shape that. When you have one that's just not interested in anything, it can be very difficult to get them motivated sometimes, especially if they're not food motivated. So that is interesting. So she's how old?
She turned 3 in July.
Oh, so you've got a ways still. Okay. I thought you had said, well, ago she was 10, and I thought, oh, I didn't remember her being 10. Okay.
Oh,
I got
no.
it. Okay.
No,
I was like, wait.
she's still like a baby, you know.
Got it. Got it. That's also about the tractor tower. I've been wanting my husband to build me one of those, so I'm so jealous. Okay, so let's
I got a free one when I got some hay recently, and they had a tractor tire sitting there, and I was like, "Oh, I'll take that." And so they were happy to get rid of it.
That was lucky. So let's talk about the feet, right? I know you're frustrated. I understand, right? I do.
Yeah.
There's no way, you know, to know what transpired before you got her. Did you get any information at all from the breeder about that?
Well, no, just that, you know, she had some farrier trimming them. I mean, I haven't really probed her on the details because I don't want to make her feel bad, like he did something to her or whatever. But
it would be nice to know if she. Sometimes you ask people. I mean, like Kate's horse that kicked me in the stomach. She was like, "Oh no, she's never been handled. She's never been touched." And then after I went flying through the air and landed on my butt, she said, "You know, well, there was that time, and it turns out there was like 10 of those times where she struck somebody, or you know what I mean." And so sometimes people, you know, as long as you phrase it carefully, they're usually pretty good. And sometimes you can just get just enough information that will give you an edge to be able to solve something a little bit quicker. It's not imperative, but sometimes it can be helpful. I think it's awesome that her front feet are going good. Do you have some video? I haven't watched your videos yet. Have you have some video of the rasping?
Oh, no, I didn't video that. I just tried that for a little bit. I mean, I can rasp for a few seconds, but she easily loses patience with that. And so I would
what
prefer
about,
to
have you
try
tried having her eating her food, right? Her actual food, even if it's not at the same time everybody eats. Maybe you give her half her food then or whatever, or maybe it is at the same time everybody else eats. Maybe it's in a different place than normal if that's safer. But have you tried actually rasping her feet while she's eating?
No, I haven't tried that yet.
I would. So what I would do is I would try to classically condition as much of the feet behavior as I could, right? And so she already loves her target. So that's always a good thing to have in front of her whenever you're doing this, right? And as much continuous feeding as you can do, especially if you're able to pick the foot up, right? And she can just continuously eat while you've got it. And say you rasp a couple times and then you put the foot down. And if she will stand there and eat and let you pick that foot up and put it down and let you take a couple of licks or one lick even with the rasp and put it down and pick it back up, I'd be okay with that. I would do whatever I could to say, when I come out to pick your feet up and I've got the hoof pick and or the rasp or the hoof stand, and I would start getting that stuff out on a regular basis. Like even when she's just eating her dinner and you don't have time to do much, I would still come out there with the bucket and the rasp and the hoof stand sitting beside her while she's eating. Like I would try to make all the things as positively conditioned as possible. Okay, so just think of setting your context up anytime she's eating or anytime that she's doing anything that she likes to do. Think of getting all your tools out and setting that context up. Okay, that'll help. It'll go a long way.
Okay.
Because for them, every little thing can be a context shift. You know, like for example, I tend to get all my horses doing stuff really good, and when the video camera comes out, one of two things, right? Either I totally flunk, and my husband laughs because I'm like, just take the camera away and I'll show you. Because I'm like, hey, come on out here, I want to show you something. I'm like, hey, turn your phone on while you're here. And then I can't do it. And I'm like, just put the camera away. He's like, you're being ridiculous. I'm like, no, right? And then other times the camera comes out and my personal horse goes wild. He's like, woohoo, party on, camera's out, food's coming, right? And so you want to make those things associated for her like he feels about the camera. Right, because he's like, yeehaw, I know something good's about to happen. So let's try that, right? And then this is a bit of a caveat, right? Because I don't know if you were on the call with Jessica Gonzalez last time. We're going to have her here in a couple. I think I'm going to have her in either December or January, maybe November, but I can't remember. but she talks a lot about the feet picking up behavior, right? And there's a lot of schools of thoughts about that. Here's what I find, and this is not textbook, okay? But here's what I find. If I can get them to where they'll pick that foot up for reward, right? I mean, really, truly all positive, cue, feed, right? If I can get them going with that, then I am not averse to a little bit of what they call modeling or molding, okay? So what that means is that I'm helping them a little bit, right? And so where they may want to take it, I may gently ask, can you let me keep it a second or two longer, right? A lot of the positive reinforcement people are like, oh, no, you can put it back down. Oh, no, you can put it back down. Now, if you trap them, you're going to make it worse, right? If you attempt to model or mold and you trap them, you're going to make it worse. However, if you are astute enough to make a good, timely judgment call to just stretch their length of time a little bit longer, often one of two things happens. One is maybe you just do get a couple of seconds of duration and they're still uncomfortable and you let it go, right? You honor their request to put their foot down. But the other is that sometimes they'll get past that second or two where they're very uncomfortable and let you hold it for another second or two. Right? And then hopefully you get to make the decision of when to give it back. But what you do want to do is always say, I hear you, right? Like, I hear you. So in other words, if they give you a little bit of pressure and pull a little bit, well, I'm going to reach around there and feed them. And that half a second after that pull, when they, when I've kind of said no, and they go, okay, I'm going to make sure they're getting food then. Right? And so a lot of people will be like, no, totally has to be up to them. They totally have to hold it and whatever. But what I find is that sometimes it's very difficult for the human, especially if you're working by yourself, to get the feeding and the timing and the cueing and the holding and all the things, right, just right. And then what happens is instead we reward them by accident for putting it down. And so I would advise, if you can, extend the duration by modeling or molding without making her feel trapped, I would do that. But I would make sure that I was bridging and praising profusely during that extra time that she was letting me have it. Okay. And also, I don't know if you're using the click or the food, and we'll look at it in a minute, but you may find that sometimes the click may be too much. You may end up having to go with the word instead of the click or something like that.
What I've been doing is I was using good as a marker signal while I'm holding the foot up and feeding that. And then when I click, then I put the foot down.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, okay? Because, well, I have to look at it. But what I find is that if we're not very, very careful, if we click and then put that foot down, then they go, they pair the click with the putting of the foot down instead of pairing the click with the foot up. Okay? So if your marker, if your praising is good, okay, so I don't know if you've gotten to this point in the course, but so my click I feed, on a new horse like that, on a young horse, 100% of the time I'm going to feed it probably. And then I'm going to feed my yes 75% and my good 45%, right? So if your good is I'm assuming good is like your 75% word. Is that true? Okay. And so you're saying good, 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 right? For me, I would, are you feeding that good?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're feeding the good. So you're good and you're good and you're good and you're good and you're feeding. So remember that the good is also a terminal bridge, just like the click, right? And so the click is probably gonna be a little more powerful because maybe you feed the click more, but you're just basically, by holding that foot, you're basically saying good in the behavior, feed, but by you still holding it, that's your next cue. I expect you to keep your foot up. Good in the behavior, feed, but immediately you're still holding the foot, so you're re-cueing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's really no difference. I would just be super careful in clicking and then putting the foot down, because the click's got super powerful. It's the next best thing to a primary reinforcer, and you may inadvertently be saying to her, putting your foot down is better than holding it up. Does that make sense? And they shouldn't see it like that. People go, yeah, but the click is supposed to mark the behavior. That is all true. But at the end of the day, the primary reinforcer is the strongest, right? And so before you put that foot down, she needs the food. regardless of the marker that you're using.
Yeah.
Does that
Well,
make sense?
yeah, like I've been clicking, feeding, and then gently setting the foot down. So
I would try and hold it up a few seconds after. Like, so if I click, feed, hold it up just a little longer, and then put it down.
mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I only can tell you this from experience. Scientifically, that shouldn't be the way it works. But from experience, I find that they very often will pair the bridge with the putting down instead of the bridge with the holding up.
Mm-hmm.
So just from experience, and that's really all I can say. So they usually do have one hind leg. It's more problematic.
I think that must be because of natural asymmetry or something.
I agree. And very often there's a pain thing there, right? A up high pain thing. But the thing is that I have found, even with pain, that I am usually able to train the horse in a way that they would rather compensate and find a way to move themselves where it's not painful with the click and the food. I was never able to do that with traditional training. But with the click in the food, I can usually get a horse to figure out a way around that pain long enough to hold that leg up for that farrier to get done what he wants to get done, because they so want the click in the food.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to look at it. I think it's important to be aware of. I think it's important to say, like I have the one horse, I tell the farrier, I'm like, you cannot stretch that leg out, right? Mm-hmm. Over time, while you're holding it, he's gently going to let you stretch it out. But if you grab a hold of it and start trying to stretch it out, it's not going to happen. And I've clicked on it and I've done all kinds of things, right? But he just physically, it takes him a minute to be able to stretch it out. I have another horse where I'm like, you got to get that leg up high, right? So as you're doing this, you're going to start to get a feel for where does she need to be most comfortable and kind of let her be there, if that makes sense, instead of being like, well, the other leg is at this height on this little stand or whatever. You follow?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so anyway, so here, someone's pick up the right helmet now, it's proper in the seat if she's the slightest bit bothered or distracted. And that is completely okay, right? And that's normal, because that one's probably been trained the least as far as effectively trained, right? And so when the context changes, that is going to be the first bothersome one, right? That's going to be the one that she's least likely to keep in the air when the context changes. So it's okay. It's like if you train right lead, say you said right lead's the hardest, I'm really going to work on right lead. You worked on right lead, you worked on right lead, right lead's right there. When you go to train left lead, even if it was the best one to begin with, it probably won't be anymore. Yeah. Right? So if you were cantering around on the left lead and something jumped out of the woods and spooked them, they would change back to the right. It is kind of that same thing. So don't worry, that's okay.
Okay. I mean, I certainly hope that it's not some kind of pain issue for her,
right?
Because I have 3 horses who I'm like, you would think there's no way that somebody could get 3 horses who have physical problems that are not that are insurmountable. Basically, like, I have 3.
I just retired 2 in the same week. And those of us who have, I think, some medical background and some ability to work with those kinds of things tend to attract horses that need us, I think. And I know that's not comforting, but I'm just saying. All right, I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I've got. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So. You just stop me, right, if you have any questions, but I want to make sure we get through all these.
Okay.
Or try to, anyway.
So every time after I click, she likes to do that head nod, like it excites her still, and I don't know if is that a bad thing or
she's not relaxed, okay? It's not relaxing her. It's not bringing her comfort, right? It's bringing her excitement and positive tension. And in some cases,
this is about as relaxed as she gets. Like,
well, so for me, right, I'll show you a couple things, and I'm sure you probably saw them, but I just need to make sure. Okay, so she's busy, and she's busy, and she's busy.
We're just starting out, and then
she's busy, and she's posing. If you are to breathe, roll your shoulders, move your feet, or reach up and touch her neck right there, she would show you that she is tense and she's holding and she's frozen and she's posing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So for me, I might mark her there once, but I probably would mark her with a word rather than the click, because that is less exciting. And I would feed her the biggest feed ever with like hay or haylage or chopped hay or hay cubes or tons of large hay pellets. I would be filling my hands like this on that first couple of clicks or bridges, and I would be just satiating her, right? And then as soon as she started chewing that big fat mouthful, I would feed her again and feed her again and feed her again in that chewing moment, so that she understands head straight and soft is the behavior that you're looking for, because she doesn't right here. She thinks she's getting bridge for almost holding her breath, having positive tension, and being really tight and posing. Okay? And it's how she understands it.
So before this, we had been out in the outdoor arena and it was getting dark. And so I felt like she was a little bit tense out there. So that's why I brought her in here, but I had already been feeding her a bunch out there. So it's not like this was just coming to the feeding.
But it's how she's understanding what you're feeding. She's understanding you to be feeding her for holding herself tightly for a very short time in that position. Mm-hmm. So if I was to tell you what she's thinking, she's not thinking she's getting fed for head straight and soft. She's thinking that she's getting fed for holding her head sort of straight with a lot of tension, holding her breath even maybe for a second. That's what she thinks the behavior is.
Okay.
Okay, so how can you help her understand that's not the behavior? You can satiate her right out of the box so that it's going to take her a minute to chew, and she's not going to be doing this while she's chewing. While she's chewing, you can click and feed and click and feed and click and feed, or you can, I would click, I'd bridge and feed and bridge and feed and bridge and feed, or even just feed and feed and feed after the initial bridge to say, this is what I want. Feed her where you want her to be. Feed her in the emotional state where you want her to be. If we continue to feed her for that frozen excitement, that is what we are going to see more of. So we've got to use the volume of food and the chewiness of food to get her to that soft place that we want. She's got to understand it. She's not understanding. That makes sense.
Okay. Although I feel like this is way better than she was initially, and I kind of feel like it's almost not possible for me to get her.
It is possible. It is. But here's the thing, Janelle. It is, and this is improvement for sure. But here is the thing. It's how you're thinking about it that makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
If you can get inside her head and every moment that you're training, say, what does she think she just got rewarded for? What does she think I just bridged for? What does she think and feel? If you can do that, you'll have it lit. Mm-hmm. Right? Because you've got the mechanics. I mean, you understand the science, you understand the mechanics and all of that, and you want to, and that's half the battle right there. The other half of it simply is understanding what she's thinking in the moment that you're rewarding her, because otherwise we're just rewarding what she's thinking and it's not what we're thinking. And she wants head straight and soft, and you do have to start with that. I tend to teach you a little bit more like you're professional, and I don't know why. I guess it's because you look so professional in your countenance, but like a trainer. But that is exactly right. You would have exactly bridged her for being head straight for just a second. I just would have fed her copious amounts to help that last longer. Does that make sense? So you did the right thing. So don't misunderstand me. I wasn't saying you did the wrong thing. You did the right thing. I just would have added to it a greater amount of food and then fed and fed and fed. Okay?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Like right there, I would have fed again. And then I would have fed again. And then I would have fed again. And I might not have clicked, right? Because the click is bringing her a little tension. I like her. She's got a little personality plus. And there I would have said, yeah, good for you. Now see, when she went to get busy like that, just to answer your question a while ago, I wouldn't have fed.
Okay.
Right? So I would have just said click, and if she would have gotten busy, I would have just waited.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know that till you do it a time or two and see if it's a repeated pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned in the beginning a while ago that it was. So for me, if I click and I can't get the food to them immediately before they can move their head, and they start moving their head, then I just wait it out.
Okay.
So there's two choices here, right? One is click and your food delivery is so fast that they don't have a chance to move yet, right? But if you miss that moment, then I'm just going to wait for them to get head straight again. Super. Mm-hmm. That's super right there. That is a perfect right there. Perfect. She's just as cute as Mom.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like her. And I've noticed she has the same abilities that my other mare has, where she can sense what I'm thinking, you know, like it's not developed yet, but I know that it's in her, so.
Look at you, that was really good. That was super. That's interesting. Have her teeth, I'm sure they have, because her teeth have been done recently and all that, right? Has she got any teeth coming in or out, or she acts a little like she might?
Well, since she just turned 3, then I had the equine dentist just check her teeth briefly, but there were no issues. But she's got some of those dental cysts on her mandible, which it's like bone formation from the teeth coming in there.
So a little bit what she acts like to me with this twist in her head, just a little bit while she's chewing, to me just makes me think a little bit of discomfort. Now that's not the same as this, right? But just that little bit of twist makes me feel like there might be a little discomfort there. Be super particular about making sure that she does have kind of her eyes level when you're feeding her, right? That she's not kind of like this. I don't doubt that she may have some discomfort, but you can shape that. And it just that way we're sure that she's understanding what you want. This is super. Look at you. I love look how soft she is. Look at her eye. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Super soft. And she's very engaged. I mean, the fact that she's, kind of moving her head right there, kind of towards you, whatever, that doesn't bother me at all. Because remember, you got the food, right? Mm-hmm. And so, if you're trick-or-treating, do you stand at the mailbox and hold your hand out, or do you walk up to the door?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so that's all she's doing.
So I just picked up the back foot, but you couldn't see it very well from that view. So
when you do this, right, when you do it again, see if you can angle your camera down just a little bit more, or get your camera to the side, or turn her to the side.
I moved her in a different orientation in some of the other videos.
Okay, good. Because I can't see the cue. Now, did you ask for that?
Yeah.
I think that was a super idea. So that she's not just standing in the same place, because she's got energy and she's busy. I love that you fed her over there about the target. That was super. One other thing you can do when you're picking those feet up, and it might just help you, is to have a bucket on the wall, like right under her target, and throw the food in the bucket. That way you're not having to stretch and reach and hold. And I think what you'll find is that you can actually toss it in that bucket when you're doing the hind feed as well. That'll stop her from turning around and facing you. It'll allow her to be very straight while she's getting the food, and it will give you more strength and time to hold that foot up.
Yeah.
This is way better than the last time. Good for you for waiting. It's okay.
So she was picking it up, but then she got distracted by the target. So.
And I'm so proud of you there for waiting. Like you were like, oh yeah, I was gonna. And then she got distracted. And instead of doing what 99% of people do and saying, give it to me again, give it to me again, give it to me again, even when you're distracted, you did it. And that was really good because chances are if you had of, she would have said no. She might not have, but she might have, right? And so when she said no, then what would have happened is we would have just trained her to do what we didn't want her to do, right? And so I think that was a super wise choice. That is light years better than the last time.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, last time, I mean, it was like you were like trying to think, oh, can I like get her, touch her with this target or something? You know, I mean, it was like a way. I felt like you were like this, you know, when you were getting near the hind end. So that was really nice.
Yeah.
If you have questions, just stop me, okay?
Okay.
And we may roll back through them again, but I just want to make sure because I have another one right after.
Oh, there. Yeah, you can see this foot better. The left hind is the one that I've worked on a lot.
Look at that. And are you bridging there at all?
I just did. I held it for like 10 seconds and then I said good, but I don't think the video or I don't think the audio picked it up.
You can say good and you can also use words of praise. Okay. Either one is fine. Remember, if you're using the good, that what you're doing is you're using it as a bridge with variability, meaning you're bridging with no food, but it still would have been like a terminal bridge, right? So because your hand's still on her, that essentially is a cue for her to continue to keep her foot up.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find that when you bridge with the good, she's like, well, where's the food? Then that tells you that in other parts of her training, you want to do some goods without food too. And I didn't see that. I'm just throwing that in there for a little bit of thought. I'm going to see it again. Yeah, as soon as you click, she's like, right?
Right.
So, and it's very common. It's okay. It's super common. I mean, really. So a couple of tests for that, right? So if you click and then wait. Right? There's two ways to do it. One is click and get the food to her so fast she doesn't have a chance and then feed the chewing moment and then click again. And by that time, she's usually pretty satiated and she won't do this, right? And so that's one way to practice it. And you'll get the recording, so don't worry.
Okay.
And another way to practice it is just to say, I clicked and you started to do this and I just decided I'd wait, right? And then when she gets where you want her to be, then you just deliver the food.
Okay.
Right. So either one of those ways or both of those ways, whichever one is easier for you, or you can mix them up, is fine. But that'll stop that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is going great. I'm super excited. So one thing, are you saying anything when you ask her to pick that foot up?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have a verbal cue. I just say foot and point at the foot. And she understands that very well.
Okay. I would be very clear with my cue for picking that foot up. And I say that because right now it's okay. She's anticipating a little bit. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. Just think though, if she was to cut herself or you would need to laser or bandage or stitch, that could be problematic,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I guess if you stitch and she's probably sedated, but for example, I have to do a lot of lasering and stuff, right? And so I actually dumbed down my horses picking up their feet because they did pick them up and hold them for me. And I got to the point where I was like, I can't do anything to their feet or their legs without them picking up their feet and holding them up in the air.
Right.
Right. So you don't need to change anything now, but except for that, I would start to get a really super clear cue, like, I tapped you on the cannon bone twice, or I touched you on the hock or the fetlock, and something very clear instead of just I bent over and held my hand out. Because if you were to be brushing or doing something else, then you're going to get that same behavior that you may not want.
Mm-hmm.
And understand you have the verbal, I do, but chances are they really depend on body language. That's super. They depend on body language more. Yeah. So I would hold on to it just a skosh longer after the click.
Okay.
So if you get to the part in the course where there's like a list of things that talk about variability, right? One of the things that we vary is the amount of time, obviously, say between when you asked for the behavior and when you clicked. But as the behavior becomes more reliable and the horse becomes more confirmed in the training, you're also going to vary the amount of time between the click and the delivery of the food. And is especially important, I find, probably more important in feet than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went back to feed her there, because she knows the click so good, I would get in my manners position and I would wait.
Oh, okay.
I would wait for her to get head straight and soft before I fed her. Now, you're not wrong in what you're doing, and that is exactly what I would have done in the beginning, is feed her fast and furious. But she has progressed to the point where she understands the game well enough that I feel like I would want her standing head straight and soft, because she's making a bit of a pattern out of this busyness before she gets fed.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to really think about your presentation there, so that her head is straight and lined up with the center of her chest. And even roll your shoulders and take a breath and move your feet or pet her on the neck in between that click and feed if you need to get her to soften. And what's going to happen, I can tell you right now, when you do that, she's going to get busier at first, right? She's going to have a little bit of an extinction burst. So you're just going to have to let her work that out.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Super. Really super.
We did have, last time I did her feet, I have to have my husband there. And so I sedated her with a low dose, and it really wasn't enough. And so it was wearing off by the time that I got to this right front foot. And luckily I had already done both hind feet. And so then she was basically fully conscious at that point. And I'm like, oh God, am I going to give her more? Or are we just going to get through this? And so I just told him, like, just keep feeding her during the whole thing. And I just got through it. And she did tolerate it like that.
Yes. Well, in that classic conditioning that you did there, right? That was what you did. And that's what we were just talking about. So I think that if it was me, right, I would be comfortable on those front feet, increasing duration, continuing to raise my criteria and increasing duration, or not at the same time, or though, so that you can change things up a little bit, you know, really like tapping on her with the hoof pick, putting your leg underneath her foot a little bit, you know, carefully and safely, right? Starting to introduce the hoof stand, maybe the first time, few times you do the hoof stand just in the vicinity. But I would start raising the criteria, but I would only raise up one criteria at a time. So it would be either duration or, you know, the hoof pick and kind of banging around on her, or the rasp, right? Or the hoof stand in the vicinity.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do all of those things separately for right now.
Okay. Well, how much duration should I build up to training, though?
I would build up a lot. I would build up more than you think you need. And that way, when the farrier is there or you're doing her feet, it's there for the taking if you need it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But honestly, I mean, I work with a lot of horses that are bad with their feet. And quite honestly, if you're really diligent about it when the farrier is there with the classic conditioning, they start to pair all that yummy food with the horseshoer truck showing up and the horseshoer and the rasp and all the things, and it gets better unto itself like that.
Mm-hmm. So here we go with the problem foot. And see, she does pick it up like that, but it's still jerky.
Okay.
And then she decides to walk off.
That's all right. That just means that's more than she can handle, okay? Don't worry about it. Okay. So again, if we had her where when she picked it up that first time, we could have dumped a bunch of food in a bucket, we would have had a better chance at the second one without her walking off, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Just increasing her comfort level.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't need to give her all that big wad of food for those other feet. right? What you're doing now is good for the other feet. I would, for the ones that I thought like the back feet where I wanted to build more duration, I might give her a little more food and I would give it to her in the bucket because it's just easier, right? For her to stay there with her head straight. She doesn't have to eat off the floor. She doesn't have to bend around. But for this one, as soon as she picked it up and I clicked and fed, I would go ahead and throw a lot of food in the bucket. Here's the other thing. So if you continue to have her picking that foot up quick and she's not wanting to increase the length of time enough for you to catch it, what you can do is just wait. So say she picks it up the first time and you click just like you did, perfect, right? The next time, if she picks it up and puts it right back down, like that same exact time frame that she did the first time, I just stand there and wait. And give her a second to sort it out, right? And so are you familiar with an LRS?
No.
Least reinforcing stimulus. Okay, so it's not important. The science isn't important. But what is important is there's two ways people use this pause. And I probably have bastardized it. But anyway, so, people, there are certain people who are in the 100% positive world, which I don't feel like horse people ever are, but people who really, lean towards that. And they say, least a reinforcing stimulus can be punishing, and they used to say its LRS is like 3 to 5 seconds. And then I've heard from people that I very much respect, I try to make it like they say, I try to make like 1 second, as short as I can. For people I very much respect and want to be like when I grow up, right? However, again, experience as a teacher tells me that you can pause like that without it being an LRS. And the reason that I say that is because when you pause and they are still processing and in seeking mode, that is very different from saying, I am pausing and stopping and saying, no, that wasn't right. Sorry, I'm talking a lot today. And giving you no opportunity, right? So if you say a horse reached around and bit me, right? So the next thing that might happen is that I might turn my back, so assuming I'm in protected contact, the horse tried to bite me, I turn my back and I just wait. That would be an LRS, right? That would be this is a no, that was not acceptable, and I'm not giving you an opportunity to earn reward, right? In this case, what we're talking about with the mare, you asked her to pick her foot up, she did, you click, she put it down. She already has this pattern of doing this. We have to be very careful, or she's going to think that the chain of behavior is, I just picked my foot up super quick and put it down. Yeah. Right? So it's great that she's picking it up and you are on the right track, and it's fine. It's fine. Where I would go with this is I'd ask her to pick it up a time or two, just a couple, and you click and feed, hopefully in a bucket, right? And then when I got ready to ask her again, I'd ask, and what she's probably going to do is pick it up and she's going to set it back down on her toe, or she's going to set it down a little lighter. I'd wait and let her think a minute, right? And just let her think. And so with that, just stay in position, right? Just stay there. Just stay bent over, stay there, so that you're giving her a hint and saying, I still want you to pick it up, right? I just would like for you to try to keep it up a little bit longer. And so when she does pick it back up, what you may find is she may hold it up just a half a second longer. So if she's picking it up and I don't even think you're getting to 1/1000, she's probably picking it up and you're getting to 1, and she puts it down. Okay, yeah. That's fine. Just pick it up. I would bridge early on that pickup, on those first couple of pickups that you're clicking. Don't wait, right? The second that she starts picking it up, not at the peak, because by the time you think to click it at the peak, she's already thinking down. The second she goes to take her weight off that thing and get up in the air, I would click the first time. The second time, the same, where I'd wait just a little longer. But then I'd start to say, okay, pick your foot up. And she goes, and she, all right, so here's the floor. And you cue her. She picks her foot up, she puts it right down. Okay? And I just wait. And I stay in position. And I guarantee you, if you give her a second, she's going to do something. What she might do might not be what you had in mind. She may bend her head around. She may walk off. She may shift her weight to the other leg. She may try some different things. But I would just wait a minute, as long as she's seeking, right? And let her see if she can sort out to pick it up again. And if she picks it up again, then you have to make the judgment call on, do you just click her for picking it up that time? Or do you wait and see if you can get from 1,000 to 1,000 instead of just one? Does that make sense? And hopefully she's now going to be more thoughtful, and you may either get to that 1,000 or you may actually be able to reach down there and touch it. I'm not saying you're going to be able to hold it, right? But you might just be able to touch it. And so that's how I would build that, is I would say, you know what? I'm going to give you benefit of the doubt a time or two here, and I'm going to click you for picking it up. But then I'm going to ask you for a little bit more. And when she walks off, then she says, that was over threshold. Okay, well, let's feed her bigger the first time, right? Okay. Let's make it a party, or give her a high value, or whatever it is that you need to do. Now, I'm going to back up a second. That's all the videos, right? I'm going to back up a second and say this. And that is, start having all your junk out. Your rasp and your hoof pick and your fly spray or whatever the things are, but your hoof stand, because a lot of horses have trouble with the hoof stand. Okay. I love hoof stands. I turn them into obstacles, and I make it seem like it is the funnest thing ever, and they can be so proud of themselves, right? And so don't worry about it. It'll come, but I want you to go ahead and start getting her used to moving that thing around her. So say you're picking up her left front, go ahead and have that hoof stand right beside you. Maybe you're not ready for it to be under her or put her foot in it or even touch her foot to it, but go ahead and have it there. When you move to the other front foot, go ahead and have it there. If you think the left hind is not quite ready for that, that's okay. Leave it up there in the front, but let it be in her vision, right? So she starts getting used to all that stuff.
Yeah.
And even if you're just picking up feet, have a hoof pick and or the rasp in your hand, so that starts to not be such a big change of context. Okay?
Okay.
And then on those front feet, you can start pulling those forward too, right?
Yeah.
And so pulling is not the right word. Modeling maybe, or even having her touch a target, or even having her, I don't usually use a target for that because I just think it gets confusing between Spanish walk and all the things that could happen. What I normally do myself is I will get them where they're picking up the front feet good, and then I'll start just being able to move that foot around like a circle, right, and back and forward with the knee bent. And so, and I get that, and I'm clicking and feeding for these things. Then when I get that good, and I'm building duration on how long I can have it up all that time and do these things, then we'll start stretching it out. But I'm just going to hold it myself, right? Okay. And then I'm going to introduce that hoof stand at the very lowest level, and just have them touch the hoof stand, quick feed, right? And touch the hoof stand, quick feed. And you're not ready to go here, but I think sometimes if we don't know what the end game looks like, it's harder for us to make the training plan, right? And so I'm trying to give you, like, these are the places that I would go. And I also think it would be helpful for you to go, and it's in, I'm actually going to, Lil and I worked on this last week, and we didn't figure out a great place to put it yet, but if you go to the very first part of the course and you go to the third, they call them lessons now, module, right? It has playbook downloads in there, and we keep on tweaking those training plan documents. Get yourself the one you like the best and print it out and write yourself a training plan so that you can see all the possibilities, because what's going to happen is one day you're going to go in there and she's going to skip a step and be ready for the next thing. And what we don't want to do is click her on minimal effort on that day.
Yeah.
On that day where she offers the thing that's going to catapult you to the next level, you want to be ready with what it is that how you want to shape it and what you want to do with it. Okay? Because that day's coming.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully.
This is way better, right? The biggest thing that's going to help you, I think, though, is just bringing her energy down in general when you're handling her. And I'm thrilled to see that she's engaged and pleasant, because the last time I saw her, she was not so pleasant.
Yeah.
So you've made headway in a big way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really have. You've made headway in a big way. So that's exciting. And I would just try to focus on, what does she think I clicked her for, right? And use words more than clicks, especially in the head straight and soft. And really look at her whole self and say, Is she posing and holding her breath? If you have any doubt, roll your shoulders, sigh, pick your feet up a little bit, shuffle your feet. And if she passes all those tests, click and feed her. And then the next time, do all those things and then touch her on the neck. And that touch on the neck is the kiss of death if they're posing, right? Because they will be able to take it. They're like, oh, I gotta have the food, you know? So, yeah, no, I just, from hearing you and reading your email, because I briefly had looked at it earlier, I was like, oh no, but this is great.
Well, I guess I just get frustrated because I'm like, it's been almost 4 months and I'm still not able to trim her feet. And I'm like, I must be on the wrong track completely or something.
No, you know, here's the thing too, right? Is that everybody can do this. Everybody can. But what it takes that most people miss is they blame themselves and they blame the horse, or they're worried they don't have what it takes. Here's the piece. It's our thinking. It's what are we thinking about? And if we focus too much on the end result, then we can't be present enough in the moment to hear what the horse is saying to us, because the horse is constantly giving us feedback, right? And I'm not talking about animal communication. I'm talking about through their behavior, right? But they are constantly energetically and physically giving us feedback. And when we become too focused on the end result of the behavior, and I know because I am famous for this in life. I'm a results-oriented person. I mean, I'm like type A++, high D personality, right? So, boy, can I be anal. And so I just want to prove like that I can get it. It's not even about proving. I just want to get it done. I just want to get it done. I want to move on. But the thing is what we lose sight of is that what you're doing right here, this is the one thing right now that is scariest to her. And if you can get her to trust you through this, the next thing that you want to do, whether it's riding or it's separation anxiety or whatever it is, you are going to have built, because you've spent the time doing this right and not pushing her and learning from her and listening to her and responding to her the best that you can. Those next levels are going to be 100 times easier. Okay? So just remember, the time that you're putting in here is not wasted. Even when you don't see what you want to see, 2 major things are happening. And one is that you're building trust and resiliency in her. But the other is that you're honing and sharpening your skills. And if someone came to you and said, Janelle, I am going to buy my 8-year-old daughter a 6-month-old foal so they can grow up and learn together, what would you say?
No.
Right. And so essentially what we've done is we've said, we're going to take a horse and a person who don't know anything about this kind of training really, right? We know about it, but we haven't had a difficult horse teach us. And that's the best teacher, right? Because I can go through all these courses and I can do all these things myself with an easy horse. But you know which one taught me the most? The hard one.
Yeah.
So we think we know until we get this horse. And now we start learning. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, and because I just wonder, with a horse like her in a normal traditional training environment, I mean, I feel like people would have resorted to pretty harsh means to try to get her to agree to this foot handling. And I feel like she's one who would just freak out at that. And I mean, and so that's not an easy horse.
If they didn't beat her, right? They'd either be beating her or they'd be drugging her.
Yeah.
I don't think there'd be any in between. And you really, I know you don't feel like you necessarily have a fresh slate or whatever because she's already had these habits, right? But in reality, I had a horse much, much worse than anything I've seen her do come to me when he was 18, right? And he can now stand ground tied for the farrier with me walking around in circles, taking pictures and videoing with the hind feet up in the cradle. So it can be done, but it just, and I didn't focus on it like you are. Like I was like, this horse is here for a different reason. And this is just a nice to have for me. So I never made a deal out of it. I only did it in my daily routine, right? Which is probably 4 days a week. I picked his feet up. I didn't feed it heavily. I did feed it, right? And stuff like that, but I didn't even click it. I just used a bridge, and just over time, it sorted itself out. So with you putting all this extra attention on it, it's gonna sort itself out.
Mhm.
You're gonna get a lot of benefits that you won't even understand where they came from later down the road.
Mhm. Well, I'm just not sure at this point how much time to dedicate to this and what other things to do. And
Okay, so let's talk about
that's
that real
always
quick.
been my sticking point, is that I don't know, like,
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it real quick. I got about 4 minutes before I have to jump on another one. Okay, so
Okay.
I think it's a great question. I would put as much time towards this as I could, as long as she appears to be enjoying it, which she does. She looks like she's quite keen. But you can also do other stuff. I mean, what else would you like to do with her?
Well, I mean, I would like to get started with doing some, well, I mean, I've been doing some liberty leading with her
Okay.
and things in the arena, going to cones, like, things like that. Because I want to get started with doing some straightness training, and like, I want to have a couple years to build her up before riding. So.
So do that. So come out and do her feet and do your thing. And if you want to do her feet again at the end, do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right? Because
yeah.
The thing is they have latent learning, right? And you don't want to drill this in the ground.
Yeah.
Right? You just want to do it. You want to be like, that was great. Here's a big jackpot. Give her a 3-5 minute break. Take her back out and go do your liberty leading or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have time to do it again at the end, great. If you don't, or if the session went stellar, don't worry about doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're better off to end on a good note than you are to do it again and it not go so great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? And so don't make yourself crazy. I know it's an issue because her feet need to be done, but you're getting very close. And if you do all those other things, like get the rasp and all the crap out every time, and you really start to condition it with a bucket of food and that kind of stuff, you're gonna be past this, and no time you're gonna be looking back going, piece of cake. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, I gotta run, catch another call. Let me know how it goes, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, we gotta get a time. Hold on.
Oh, yeah.
All right, the next person's almost always late. Not always, but usually. Let's see.
Well, we can just text about that if you want.
Yeah, let me look real quick. I might know. What is your Tuesday availability?
I'm pretty flexible right now because I'm just working from home. So.
Could you do noon on the 13th?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, let's do that. And then normally that 4 o'clock spot is open, but it's not on that day. But we'll go from there after that. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Make sure to put some stuff in the group so I can see it in the in between. Okay.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.